Shevi'i of Parshat Lech is noted specifically in terms of two britot, two covenants which are concluded between Avram and God. And those two covenants are the covenant, the Brit of Brit Milah, circumcision, and the Brit of Eretz Yisrael, Brit Haaretz. And what I'd like to speak about today is the non-specified Brit of Avraham, of the Avot, that is not detailed. It is neither the Brit Milah, nor is it the Brit of Aretz, but it is a Brit that the rabbis speak about in Masachet Ketuvot. It's the missing Brit, if you will. And this is in the context of a visit to Bimenachem Avelim, to comfort mourners, which Rav Chia bar Abba is going with his Meturgaman, his spokesperson, and to comfort the mourners. And there's a whole series in the Gemara in Ketuvot on Daf Chet Amud Beit of things that Rav Chia bar Abba essentially instructs the Meturgaman to say in this connection. And he says, say something that is relevant to the niftar, to the deceased, say something that is relevant, and so on and so forth, until he finally says, say something that's relevant to people who come to be Menachem Avelim, to people who come to comfort mourners. And the Gemara says that Kumei Mamilsa, he says to him, Keneged Menachmei Avelim. Say something vis-a-vis the Menachmei Avelim. Patach the Amar, and he says, Achenu, brothers, our brothers, who are Gomlei Chasadim, who are practitioners of chesed, of acts of loving kindness. B'nei Gomlei Chasadim, the children, the descendants of people who practice loving kindness. And where does this all come from? Hamachzikim, these people who are practicing loving kindness are people who are machzikim bibrito shel Avram Avinu. They hold fast, they hold tight and dear to them the Brit of Avram Avinu. And he goes on and he says, Achenu bal hagmul yeshalom lachem gmulchem. As HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as you were Gomer Chasadim, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu should recompense you with reward for this. But where is this Brit of Avram Avinu? Where is the third Brit? Now, there is a question of reading here in the Gemara, but the reading in the Gemara that apparently I think the Marsha had, but it's put in parentheses in the Vilna Shas, is how do we know that there's a Brit of Avram Avinu, the Brit specifically of Avram? Shenemar, a pasuk is quoted, and that pasuk is from the next parsha, from Parshas Vayera, in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu says of Avram Avinu, Ki Yedativ, for I know him, I know Avram, Ki Yedativ, Asher, Leman Asher Yitzaved Banav Yet Beito Acharav V'Shamru Derech Hashem Lasot Tzedakah V'Mishpat Ba'aretz. I know about Avram. He is a person who does tzedakah, does mishpat in the world, and his children are commanded to do it. And Avram is, now, where do we see chesed here? Where is chesed? Leman Yedativ, as Rashi says, Leman Yedativ, I love Avram. So what's going on? So we have to jump ahead to the next parsha, and we have to see The Malachim are on their way to destroy Sodom, and God, as it were, says to himself, can I hide from Avram what I intend to do with Sodom? He's going to become a great and powerful nation. Avram is a source of bracha. So how can I hide what I intend to do with Sodom when all the nations of the world are dependent, are the source of bracha from Avram? And then ki dativ, for I love Avram. And I love Avram because he's a person of tzedakah and mishpat. But wait a second. The Anshe Sodom deserve it. So what he's telling Avram. Now, of course, we understand that the telling of Avram about this is it's an invitation to Avram to argue on behalf. But Avram, when the argument begins with Avram. Okay, Avram says no. Avram doesn't say don't destroy it. Avram knows. Avram is bound, after all, by tzedakah and mishpat. Tzedakah and mishpat is not involved here. But what is Avram's argument? Avram's argument is no, don't destroy Sodom because they're innocent. And don't, and those who are innocent, okay, they're innocent. But don't destroy Sodom because maybe if there are 50 good people in Sodom, so you should save everybody. Wait, save the 50 good people. And the argument goes on 45, 40, 30, 20, 10, right? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will save if there are only 10 good people. I will save the whole city. What is Avram arguing for? This is the third Brit, because Avram is not only Mishpat Tzedakah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is on the base of Chesed. Avram is saying, Hashofet kol haaretz lo yaseh mishpat. And the mishpat that Avram is asking for is a mishpat that is based on Chesed. There have to be good people, and good people should be able to save, maybe because they can influence, they should be able to save their entire environment. And that surely is an act of Chesed. And this is the Brit of Avraham. The Brit of Avram is that God reveals to him what he's going to do, and that God will act, not simply in terms of mishpat and tzedakah, but in terms of chesed. And so the real challenge of Sodom is, in the end, are there 10 good people? Or perhaps it could go beyond that, right? But let's leave it at 10 good people. And that is, the emphasis of that is that there aren't. Notice Avram doesn't argue on behalf of Lot. Yeah, Avram went to save Lot. Avram went to battle to save Lot. And why isn't arguing Avram saying, how could, but Lot is living there. Avram knows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to destroy Lot. Lot, based on pure mishpat, pure tzedakah, Lot is going to be saved. But maybe there are people who could be saved by virtue of Lot, or a few others liked him. And in fact, everybody could be saved by their virtue. But there is nobody. Lot will be saved. Okay? The angels are supposed to save Lot. But what happens, and this is the emphasis in the Torah, the emphasis in the Torah is Terem yishkavu v'anshei ha'ir. The Malachim are together with Lot in his house, and before they retire for the night, the people of the city, Anshei ha'ir, emphasize, Anshei Sodom, nasabu al habayit, they surround, they lay siege to the house, mi nar v'ad zaken, from youth till old man, kol ha'am mikatzeh, everybody, kol ha'am. And as the Rashbam points out, and this is a simple pshat, Why are we emphasizing? Why is the Torah emphasizing Kol Ha'am? Lehodia she'afilu echad min ha'asara she'amar Avraham lo nimtza bahem. Not even one of those 10 is righteous. Every sodomite, every man of stone, every person of stone was around the house and demanding the evil that they were demanding. Chesed. Yes, but Avram argues, Avram is arguing for chesed. For chesed. And that is the Brit of Avraham that is emphasized specifically in the case of Avelim, specifically connected with that of the burial of the dead and the comfort of those who are mourning the dead. This is called, when Yaakov says to do chesed ve'emet, this is true gemilut chasadim. It's true. It's the chesed of emet. Gemilut chesed shel emet is that of the Chevra Kadisha, and is also that of the people who come to comfort mourners. Indeed, Rabbi Simloi, who is the very person who says there are 613 mitzvos, says that in Gemara in Tanis, in the Gemara in Makos, is quoted in the Gemara in Sota as saying Torah Tchilasa Gemilus Chasadim, V'sofa Gemilus Chasadim. The first thing in the Torah is Gemilus Chesed. It's an act of loving kindness. And the last thing is an act of loving kindness. The first thing is after man has sinned and should be reproved, but he's embarrassed and God is concerned with his embarrassment and God gives him clothing. He sinned against God, but God clothes him so that he won't feel embarrassed. And at the end of the Torah, God himself buries Moshe. Gemilut Chesed. And if the Torah begins with Chesed and ends with Chesed, it's like even though there are 613 mitzvos, if you want to know where the Torah, the ultimate meaning of the Torah is, of course Mishpat, and of course Tzedakah, but of course to begin with Chesed and to end with Chesed. And that's the Brit of Avram Avinu. That is the third missing covenant of Avram Avinu. The Rambam says at the end of the guide, he quotes the pasuk in Yirmiyahu, Ayitalil, Ashir Bashro. A person who's wealthy should not think that he's really done something significant. He can't praise himself because he's wealthy. Al Yitalel Gibor B'Gvurato, nor the mighty man, powerful, strong, right? Al Yitalel Chacham B'Chachmato, even the wise person, right? Kim B'Zot Yitalel Hamitalel. What should a person say? I've discovered something worthy of praise. Haskil V'Yadosi, that he knows me, says God. And the Rambam ends, here it should be, that should be the end of the pasuk. Or since the pasuk continues, Ki ani Hashem, for I am God, let the Navi go on, let the Navi Yirmiyahu go on and say something that is indicative of the knowledge of God, some profound philosophical, Ki ani Hashem echad, right, and explain it philosophically. But the Navi ends, Ki ani Hashem, for I, God, am oseh chesed mishpat u'tzedakah ba'aretz. I do chesed, mishpat, tzedakah. And the way of a person, the Rambam concludes, the way of the guide for perplexes is to teach me that to be a person who can say of himself that, yes, I accomplished something in life, is to be God-like, to be as God is called a gomel chesed, one who is gomel chasadim tovim. So you too should be a gomel chesed. You should have the virtue of chesed. You should be a practitioner of chesed. And that is the Brit, the unspoken Brit. There is the Brit, the covenant of the land of Israel, and there is a covenant of Brit Milah. Yes, yes, of course. They are specific. They are involving mitzvot and many mitzvot. But there is a further, and that is ki dativ, right? I love Avram. You know why? Because Avram Oavi, he loves me. And to love God is to love his creatures. Avram Avinu is Ohev et Habriot, Chazal say. He's Ohev et Habriot, all human beings, umekarvan laTorah. And thus, with this Avat Habriot, he brings them near. He brings them to Torah. And you know why? Because Torah, ultimately, in a very profound way, the Brit of Eretz Yisrael is for Jews, and Brit Milah is for Jews. But the Torah is Chesed, and that Avram is the Chesed of Avram. That's the Mekarvan LaTorah, the Brit of Chesed.